civil conversation.
Wow, it seems like everybody gives out pens, you know. Pretty easy to start to accumulate quite a few of them.
True that.
No, I honestly, I stood there and I'm like, hey, everybody ready? Okay. It's 4:30 and I'd like to call to order the Tuesday, March 3rd, 2020 Moorhead Public Service Commission meeting.
It's weird.
I'm now going to read the form for customers who would like to speak to us. Customers wishing to address the commission for items that are not on the agenda, please fill out the request to speak form located on the tables by the elevator and give to the administrative assistant in attendance at the meeting prior to speaking. Customers wishing to address the commission regarding a specific agenda item other than the rate hearings will be given an opportunity during the discussion of that item. Each customer will be given 3 minutes to address the commission. We are here to listen. Any follow-up or feedback will be done by email on anything that cannot be resolved this evening. Given that, I'd entertain a motion to approve the revised agenda.
So moved.
Or if you're going to make a change to item 14, you have to bring it off consent.
I'll move that item 14.
My second.
Okay, so we have a motion to revise the Moorhead Public Service Commission agenda, removing item number 14 off the consent. It's been moved, seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Opposed, same sign. Seeing none, moving on to approving the consent agenda.
Move approval with 14 off.
Okay,
Second?
all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Seeing none, moving on to item number 6, customers to be heard and/or recognitions. Any customers to be heard? Seeing no movement. Any recognitions?
Not at this time.
Okay, seeing none. Old business? Any old business? Looking around, nothing. Okay, reports. City Council.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nothing really to report from the last council meeting, even though I was absent. I was in St. Paul that Monday. But this next week, we do have we're going to meet with our legislators, and then the week after, discuss some of the high priorities for Moorhead. So we'll be looking forward to that. That's all I have.
Thank you. Public Service Commission. Any reports? All right, I didn't know if to put this at old business or not, but we need to make an appointment to the I-94 Tower Committee. That committee was staffed by myself and John Regala. MPS Commission needs to have one representative. The meeting is Monday, this coming up, 8:30 to 9:30 a.m., right here in the boardroom. That's this meeting. There's typically a doodle poll that goes out for meetings. Is anybody interested in serving on that task force or commission or council or whatever we're calling it, task force? You want to? Okay.
I had served as the council rep on it, so I could carry on in this capacity.
Commissioner Duran, can you put your mic closer? Thank you.
I said yes, if nobody else is interested, I could serve on that committee. I had served as the council appointee to that committee, but am no longer, so I could carry on in this capacity if nobody else is interested.
Is anybody else interested? Okay, seeing as how you volunteered. Happens when you volunteer, you got a job.
Nobody else wants it?
That's right. Thank you. Nothing else from Moorhead Public Service Commission?
Do you have,
Do we have to
Madam
make a
Chair, do you
motion?
have to, yeah, do you have to make a recommendation or,
Well, motion?
yep.
Okay. So we want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to appoint Heidi Duran to the Water Tower Committee.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, moving on to the manager's report. Mr. Schmidt?
Good evening, Commissioners. Just wanted to give you the manager's report. If you look at it, there's the fourth quarter strategic plan updates. You can peruse that and review that, as well as on a quarterly basis, we also provide you with a dashboard of that quarter's operational items that have been going on. So you can look at that. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me. We can give a better explanation unless you've got something right now. Other than that, I think there was a couple of thank yous in there from a couple customers. And that's about the gist of the report.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Schmidt? Okay. Item D, annual reliability performance report.
Do you want to have a motion on that to accept that report? Or I'll have to look into if we do accept the reports or not, but just
I
to.
think we usually do. I'll make the motion to accept that report.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Sorry.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, thank you. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number E, accept report on innovation strategic direction for investigation of
Oh, item D.
innovative technologies. Pardon me?
Item D.
That was the manager's report.
Yep.
Okay, sorry. Accept the 2019 annual reliability performance report.
Sure. I'll speak to this. Annually, Moorhead Public Service collects all the information from our outages on the electric division side. And based off the requirements of the Minnesota Utilities or Public Utilities Commission, our report goes directly to the commission. It doesn't go to the PUC. The PUC usually obtains the IOUs or investor-owned utilities and some of the cooperatives' reliability report. So I'll be presenting on that this evening. Really, we look at 3 indices specifically. We look at CAIDI, SAIFI, and SAIDI. And the CAIDI one is the Customer Average Interruption Duration Index. Then the SAIFI is the System Average Interruption Frequency Index, and SAIDI is the System Average Interruption Duration Index. The commission basically has in the past basically said, our standards are going to be 60 minutes or less on SAIDI and CAIDI, and SAIFI is 1 outage a year or less. In 2019, MPS met all 3 of those performance indices. And on top of all of that, there's one other thing that we look at too, and it's the ANSI standard as well too. And we try to be between 4 and 5.9, so 99.99 or 99.999% reliable. That one as well was obtained in 2019 too. So we met all 3 indices that are approved, and then the 4th one as well too. So overall, our biggest issues, of course, were tree issues and squirrels, of course. Our lovely thing. We did have a lot of weather incidents as well in 2019 too. So those were the biggest issues that we had overall. Again, we do a lot of cable replacement to make sure that those reliability indices stay up. We're still working through the process to figure out how to reduce those squirrel outages as well. And then also we do tree trimming on a biannual basis. So every other year, we'll either do the north side of town or the south side of town, and then our transmission line as well with the south side of town, because that is predominantly less overhead area. So overall, I'll take any questions if you have any from that.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Schmidt, I'm pretty impressed by these numbers. 99.9% reliable is a pretty resilient system. When we compare our system to neighboring systems, where do we fall as far as benchmarking locally?
Sure. Locally, and I can't attest to the exact numbers of, I would use Cass County Electric and XL Energy. I would say we're above XL Energy as in regards to the reliability portion of it, so we're better off than them. Cass County Metro is probably very similar to what we look at, or the way we look, but if you get into the rural areas of Cass County Electric, they probably have a different reliability numbers than we would. So, that's probably the best way to state that.
Sure. And you had mentioned a couple of different tactics you're using to address even enhance our resiliency further.
Mm-hmm.
As far as squirrels, I'm assuming that's all the overhead lines, and we have a program for replacing those lines and putting them underground. Is that correct?
We don't technically have a plan to put them underground. There's a lot of costs and there's a lot of work that goes into that. And we can address that in another meeting. And we've talked about it in the past too, undergrounding the entire system. It's just there's a major cost to it. And I'd have to pull up some of the numbers and facts on that and update them as well too. But we do try to do things differently on the lines to make them less prone to having squirrel outages. But unfortunately, you just can't stop everything. So we're working on that, and we'll continue to work on that to make things better so that the overhead areas of town are as resilient as the underground. To your question on outages, sometimes we do get animals inside some of our underground switches, and there was two outages in 2019 that occurred because an animal was inside of one of our switch and caused an outage. So most of the time it's overhead, but every once in a while we'll get something underground.
Sure. Are there any federal resiliency grants that maybe could be pursued to look into funding portions of that?
Sure. Typically, there isn't a lot of funding for those, but we can do some more looking into that. I would look into APPA to see if they have something. But federally, there usually isn't a lot of grant money available for electric utilities.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, I'm ready for a motion to accept the report.
Move to accept.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Gotta be quick on that trigger. Jeez.
Motion carries. Now we're on item number E, right?
Okay, I'll speak to this too. We talked about this this past fall, but with new commissioners on the board, we wanted to bring this up so you're up to speed on what we're working on with innovative technologies. And really this topic is going to tie really into, excuse me, AMI, automatic meter infrastructure, or automated meter infrastructure system. Currently we have an automated meter reading system, and we have a drive-by system currently. So we have two employees that go out on a daily basis, and they do drive-bys, collecting meter data for both the water and electric systems. Or, excuse me again. And really the biggest topic or reason why we're talking about automated meter infrastructure is Missouri River Energy Services, our power provider, is looking to go to time of use rates in 2023. And to do a better job of collecting data based off the time of day that customers are using their power, we need to put in an AMI infrastructure and system so that we can properly collect those data. So, we're looking at potentially having a 3 to 4 tier program or time of use rates that we could implement. And really it helps be more clear with the customers, those that are using more power are going to get charged. And if they're using it during a specific time of day, the charges are going to be higher. But, a customer that isn't using a lot of power during those times of day, they're going to see their bills or their rates be less. So it's got good options to help out all customers of Moorhead Public Service. So currently where we're at with that, we talked in the fall of 2019, and we're currently going through a process of validating what we have on our system. We have some older meters that we need to verify, what type they are and what type of meter socket it has tied to it, because all those things, if we go forward with this project, will need to be potentially fixed before we can implement the new metering system. And we got to figure out that how many of those meters we have. Currently, it's about 3,000 that we're verifying. And what's that cost going to be, and how are we going to manage that cost? Is that something that Moorhead Public Service, as part of the project, is going to take care of, or are we going to have the customers do it? Typically with the way this is looking, I would suggest we handle that cost internally with Moorhead Public Service, so we don't put those costs on to the customers. But we got to figure out what that's going to be before we can really make a decision on it. So hopefully we're working on that currently, and we'll be back to you probably in a few months, maybe longer, to visit about that. Because once that's done, we could really move forward with a phase 0. And phase 0 is really us doing a pilot or a small project out there to see how it works and really flush out any of the problems that we could potentially have when we do a full implementation. Understand how that's going to work and connect into our system. Just kind of make sure we've got our T's crossed and I's dotted when we do that. Overall, currently we're looking at a total cost of about $8 million to replace both the water and the electric meter infrastructure so we can handle this properly. And that really is the starting point for us being able to give a lot better and more information to the customers. If the commission so pleases, we can do more information on outages, having maps that show where the outage is currently being affected, and hopefully we can do that very automatically. So we don't have to, we're not waiting to try to get the information out to whether it's the media that's asking questions or customers that are calling in, trying to minimize that. Yep, we know we have an outage and we're working to get it restored. Here's where the outage area is, and things like that. And that'll also, with the time of use and this AMI system, we'll be able to do potentially smart thermostats and have those connected to where we could maybe potentially turn them down to help reduce the overall system load. Along with that, EV chargers are a big thing that are coming up as well too, and making sure that they're not charging when we're at a high need for electricity in Moorhead. We can turn those off, or they can work during the middle of the night when the normal usage is low. Again, streetlight controls is something we're looking at as well too. It's an expensive cost. I know we're working with Steve Moore currently with the city of Moorhead. He's working on a project that could potentially include that, but again, we're looking at it on a cost basis and if it's worth it to do that. So it's being evaluated as well. Again, we talked about outage management and being able to give more information on that, and just being able to see where that stuff is at. Currently, we have a SCADA system, a supervisory control and data system. And, being able to bring that information or have that information with the meters that are out could help, help our employees better understand where the outage actually is at. We have a full GIS system, or almost full. We're still cleaning up a few things on that, but really trying to being able to get that and being able to say, okay, this is where the outages are, and upline, what's the next upline piece of equipment that's could have failed. Getting our employees there so that they can turn the power back or get the power back on a little quicker too. So, other than that.
Questions? Do we have, on for a typical user, will the TOU rates be significant? I mean, if I changed over and did all my high usage tasks at off usage time, what kind of savings would I expect to see?
That's something we need to work on. We need to figure out what our rate structure is going to look like. Nancy, do you know have we got an example of another utility?
MRS still hasn't developed their rates yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
It's just-
yeah. It's going to be, it could be an impact. We'll probably do it over a few years, the adjusting of the rates, but again, it's going to look really like your typical rates. It's just going to be, overnight it's going to be really, the price will be low, and then you'll have a rate for probably the morning period, and then during the day it might drop down a little bit, and then of course the evening where we seem to have a lot of usage, that would be another time that would be higher, the rate would be higher, and then it would fall off again at night. So
What about seasonally? Would there be any difference seasonally?
that's a great question, something we probably have to ask to Missouri River for, and really, theirs are going to adjust as well based off the time of season. We'll have to see if that's something that we'll be able to do as well too.
Any other questions? Okay. Looking for a motion?
I'll move to approve or accept the report.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Looks like we're down to number 9. Approve agreement with West Central Minnesota Community Action for Affordable Housing Weatherization Program.
Sure, and I'm going to have Dennis Eisenbrown come up and speak to this. He's our Energy Services Manager, and he's the one that has been dealing with this for roughly the last 10 years or so.
Dennis Eisenbrown, Energy Services Manager. Excuse me. Yeah, this program predates me, and so it's probably been around for several decades. And that's why it's called the Affordable Housing Weatherization Program. And you think, well, what is that? Well, first of all, it's a program that's mandated by the Minnesota Department of Commerce. And we take a 3-year average of our residential sales, and then we take 0.2% of that, and that is what we allocate to this program. And originally it was called weatherization because they were having the utilities use money to help people with that met a certain income threshold, to help them with covering windows, sealing cracks, that sort of thing. But we now have more energy efficient appliances, and we can actually use whatever we want to meet this standard. And so what we do is we offer to provide clients who meet the income levels appliances that we have selected, and then the West Central Minnesota Community Action Agency goes around, and as they talk to their clients, they will identify clients who could benefit from having an Energy Star, either refrigerator, dishwasher, or clothes washer, and then they provide us that information, and the clients can pick from 2 of each of those categories. They're pre-selected, pre-priced, and we just have them delivered, and everything's A-OK. So it's a great program.
Questions? About how many ratepayers are impacted?
We probably average about 50 clients a year. So some have one appliance, some get all three. It just depends on what they need.
Great. Go ahead, Mr. Hendrickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So how much work goes into weatherizing? Is it like a process or?
We have this down pretty pat. Basically what I do is I put together a list of 2 appliances. I have a list that I send to a couple vendors in town. And I say, give me your best price for Energy Star appliances that meet these requirements. And then it also requires that the old appliance is picked up and then recycled. We don't just provide a new appliance that is replacing an old one that's used as less, that's not as energy efficient. So there has to be an existing appliance to replace. But I simply, send the list out to the vendors. They give me the prices for the appliances, then I pick an overall vendor, and that's who we use for that year.
Do you use vendors in Moorhead?
We do, yes. Yes, absolutely.
Just Moorhead?
Just Moorhead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions, comments? Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Dennis. I am just curious about what, if anything, we do for homeowners who are lower income, who might have ice jams due to heat escaping through their attic and through their roof. Do we offer any kind of help with that?
We
I mean,
don't.
that can be a huge energy loss and a huge problem for the homeowner if they were to get all that water in their home. But it's not speaking of that, even just from the utility perspective, that a lot of heat can be lost.
True.
Dennis, do you want to talk, you talk about insulation and energy audits in your report. Do you want to speak to that?
I'm not quite sure where you're headed with that.
You just, let me see if I can find it here. You talked about Energy Star rate appliances to replace existing ones, energy audits, energy education, insulation, and insulation of.
Yeah, I put that in. A few years ago, we actually had a client who really didn't want an appliance, and they really needed some new insulation. And so we said, well, okay, we'll do that. One of the reasons that we pick appliances, it not only replaces an old unit that doesn't work very well, but it also lets us, the energy savings on these Energy Star appliances, we also apply to our Conservation Improvement Program numbers, the SIP. So we can actually claim SIP credit for that. And if we put in insulation, it helps the people, but we can't claim any SIP credit for it. So we're trying to do things that help the client as well as the utility. But yeah, we have done insulation projects before.
Okay, so a person could say, they could request the insulation help and say, we don't want the.
Yeah, we don't try to do, because we try to do things it's pretty well defined.
Yeah.
But yeah, we try to be the good guys. So.
It seems like a huge utility issue when sometimes you drive around and you see these huge ice dams, and I think to myself, that's a lot of heat that is escaping through that roof, and I hate to think of all that waste.
Yeah, so, I don't doubt that. But a lot of that is gas heat too, so.
Yeah, true. Yep, very true.
Yeah,
Thanks again, Dennis.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate it. Okay, with that, ready to entertain a motion?
I'll move to accept the report. Or, that's not a report, that's a,
Approve
I'll
agreement.
move to approve the agreement.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Seeing none, motion carries. Then we go down to number 14, which we'd removed from the consent agenda, which is to approve the appointment of, read my writing, which I can't. To representatives to Missouri River Energy Services and Western Minnesota Municipal Power Agency. With that,
Want me to speak to it a little bit?
would you like to speak to it?
I
Thank you.
can give you a background, so. Missouri, again, so Missouri River Energy Service and Western Minnesota Municipal Power Agency are kind of two, or one in itself. Western Minnesota Municipal Power Agency is the financial agent for Missouri River Energy Services. And based off the size of Moorhead, we have to have a representative for each of those boards to be on, or to attend those meetings and things like that. So we're looking to change that, and myself will be the primary for that, and also Heidi Durand will be the alternate. So it's a good thing. It helps us represent Moorhead on those two boards, and be able to make sure that everything is going properly for one of our power suppliers, so.
Okay, so we have a revised motion. We should probably, do we need to amend it at all?
I would just suggest, approve the motion for Travis, or interim general manager Travis Schmidt to be the representative and Heidi Durand to be the alternate.
And approve the execution of the two documents that are attached.
Right, the agreements.
Chris?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. John, do those documents need to be amended at all to include an alternate?
Shouldn't have to.
I thought there was already room for an alternate in there.
Perfect. All right.
Yep. Yep, right. You see it?
Second page?
Yeah, it's on
Okay.
Representative.
Perfect.
So, okay. This works out well. Okay. Joel?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to execute the two documents, the Western Minnesota Municipal Power Agency authorized representative and the Missouri River Energy Services authorized representative, with interim general manager Travis Schmidt as primary commission member, with alternate being commission member Durand.
Thank you. Somebody second?
Second.
Okay, wonderful. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Seeing none, motion passes. And we're not closing the meeting. Please note the upcoming meetings, and if you were interested in any of them, contact me or Mr. Schmidt. Motion to adjourn, anybody?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you for coming.